Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Garrett Smith, also known as the nutrition detective around these here YouTube parts. And this is the 92nd Love Your Liver live stream, 92nd in a row. I am going out of town this weekend, so I had to move it again. So I don't know. I'm kind of liking doing these earlier in the week. I may change the time of the live stream because I think if I rearrange my schedule a little bit, I'll have more time to write and make other short videos, which I know everybody wants, and get the message out there even better. So who knows? There may be changes. Since I've changed it 2 weeks in a row and I'm kind of liking it, I'm the boss. I get to do what I want. So that's that. So anyway, for those of you who don't know, all of my links are down in the info below. All my social media links, and we have the podcast links and everything you need to find if you want to find more information from me. If you want the best explanation of toxic bile theory, go to my 71st live stream, Love Your Liver live stream number 71 on this channel. And then one last thing before we jump in is make sure if you're in the chat, make sure to X out of it and go like this video. We got 26 people in the chat and only 11 likes. So if we can get all those, that would be great. That's how the computers know to tell other people to come watch this. And then if you're watching this later, so many of you do this well. If you're watching this later, like it, of course, and leave a comment, no matter how short. It can be an emoji, whatever, it all works. So just interact with the comments and then we get further. So, okay, here we go. The main topic I wanted to talk about today, which is really gonna blow some people's minds, is the old sailors' diets. The 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, and how they talked about them getting scurvy. And, the term for the Brits were that they were limeys, right? Because they took limes on the ships to prevent scurvy. So one day, I know Grant Genereux did a blog post on this. I'm going to do things different than he does because I do things in my own way. We both do things in our own way, and we respect each other for it. But we almost always come to the same conclusions. So it's kind of cool to have two different minds working on it. So let's get into it. So here is the link I found. The article is called Salt Pork, Ship's Biscuit, and Burgoo. See provisions for common sailors and pirates. Now, first, I want to get into before we get into this, let's get into a fun little paper on vitamin A toxicity and scurvy. So I put the link to that ship diets there, and here's another paper. I've probably been over this before, and I wanted to go over Hypervitaminosis A and Scurvy. That's the name of the paper, Hypervitaminosis A and Scurvy. It was in the journal Nature in 1949. Here's the abstract. This was by Rodal, who did the biggest paper. Actually, let me see if I can find that for you guys, because to see this is Rodal's paper on vitamin A and scurvy, or vitamin A. He did research on humans. He did research on animals. He's the one who basically proved that natural and synthetic forms of vitamin A, the exact same forms, when they are given to animals in the exact same doses, caused the exact same toxicity. He showed it in multiple animals, birds, cats, dogs. He showed it multiple times. He showed that cod liver oil was as toxic as retinol palmitate. It's all right there. And then when they took, here's a funny thing that was in that Rodal paper. When they took the vitamin A out of the cod liver oil, they had no problems from cod liver oil in the animals. Amazing. But vitamin A is not toxic, Dr. Smith. We need a lot of it. No. And I've shown that in the video on this channel, that vitamin A toxicity or vitamin A deficiency doesn't exist. as I've shown in that Twitter thread of the same name. So let's get into this paper. So hypervitaminosis A and scurvy. I'm going to read the important parts here. The similarity between the clinical picture of hypervitaminosis A, which is vitamin A toxicity, in rats. Wait, no, actually, this is not the dog study. Wait, I need the dog study. Oh, I grabbed the wrong study. But anyway, let me just read this first part. The similarity between the clinical picture in hypervitaminosis A in rats and that of scurvy has been pointed out by Vetter and Rosenberg, who found that ascorbic acid offered protection against excess of vitamin A, and also by Moore and Wang, who failed, however, to detect any abnormality in the ascorbic acid metabolism in their hypervitaminotic rats. So they just said that the symptom picture of vitamin A toxicity and scurvy is similar, if not exactly the same. I have another paper where they mentioned dogs, and they said basically the same thing. So now we have it in rats and dogs. And then they said they found that ascorbic acid, vitamin C, offered protection against excess of vitamin A. So what did the British do when their sailors were getting scurvy, which just so happens to have the same symptoms as vitamin A toxicity? Oh, they gave them some limes, which had some vitamin C. Does that mean they fixed a vitamin C deficiency? Or like they just said here, ascorbic acid offered some protection against the excess of vitamin A? There's people out there who say vitamin C will fix everything. Does it actually ever fix anything? No, you can just take it you can take enough of it to cover up your symptoms. Gosh, what might you be covering up? Oh, symptoms of toxicity, possibly quite vitamin A. Here's what I want to talk to you guys about real quick before we start too, is one of the funny things that happened with the all muscle meat carnivore crew eating only meat. Why aren't they all dying of scurvy? Answer me that question. They're not. There's a guy, I think, the really long term, just so you know, almost all of the organ meat carnivores, they don't last 5 years or 10 years doing it. They get sick because they're eating liver and eggs, and some of them are doing dairy too, and it's a disaster of vitamin A. I'm going to warn you guys out there who are organ meat consuming carnivores, or you're still eating lots of vitamin A, or those of you who have been misled into eating eggs on a low vitamin A diet. I'm sorry. There are no really long-term organ meat carnivores who are eating lots of organ meats. Even Carnivore MD Saladino has cut his organ meat consumption way back. Liver King never ate a pound of liver a day. If you watch his expose where he was taking so many steroids, that's why he looked like that. He did not eat a pound of liver a day. He took a couple of his liver tablets, and his liver is probably still just absolute garbage. That's why he's red in color. Sick livers make people red. Liver King is red in many of the videos. There's no, it's not a coincidence. So, long-term muscle meat carnivore, there are very long-term all muscle meat carnivore people. 10 years, 15 years. So, and the other thing about an all muscle meat diet is that it's very low in vitamin A and it's very low in copper. Now, do I think an all muscle meat carnivore diet is optimal for detoxing vitamin A, for getting out of it? No, but an all muscle meat carnivore could be tweaked with simply adding some soluble fiber. Could even be, if you want to call it processed soluble fiber, which could be like psyllium fiber. Finer ground psyllium is better than more coarsely ground. But I've got people who are doing really, really well on an all muscle meat carnivore diet and some psyllium fiber, fixing things that the carnivore diet didn't fix, because the carnivore diet is not good at getting rid of your toxic bile. There's nothing in a carnivore diet that grabs onto toxic bile. So we're showing in modern times that an all muscle meat carnivore diet is not causing scurvy. Do we need more evidence of that? So how much vitamin C do humans need if they're eating about as low a vitamin A and copper diet that they can? Wait, they're not taking in vitamin A and they're not taking in vitamin C, but yet in this Hypervitaminosis A and Scurvy paper, it says the clinical picture of vitamin A toxicity, hypervitaminosis A in rats, and that of scurvy, the similarity between them. There's a similarity between those pictures of symptoms. And then they found that vitamin C offered protection against the excess of vitamin A. So when people eat a very low vitamin A diet, and they don't eat any vitamin C, there's not much in meat at all. And people have tried to make other excuses that there's other things in meat that turn into vitamin C. They're making stuff up. It's a low vitamin A diet and a low vitamin C diet. And they don't get scurvy because they're not making themselves toxic on vitamin A. And so they don't need this extra vitamin C. And I do not, for those people on a low vitamin A diet, if you choose to use vitamin C, I suggest very low doses if you're going to do it, of like 250 milligrams or less a day. If you choose to do this, I don't do this. I'm not saying to do it. I'm saying if you're going to throw vitamin C into the mix, 250 milligrams or less a day, based on the research that I've seen, may help you feel a little better. If you choose to shut down your detox, if you're feeling bad, with very high doses of vitamin C, you can help yourself feel better. Like, right? You can shut down a cold, which is a bile dump, by taking mega doses, like mega doses, to bowel tolerance, to diarrhea, which, what have we talked about diarrhea is? A massive dumping of bile. So here's the weird thing. There's these, I forget what it's called, a triphasic response, where you can have a different response in the middle versus the end. So it could be like in the middle of the high vitamin C dosing, you might shut down bile production. Whereas at the high dose, all of a sudden you dump it. It's called a triphasic response. So that may be what's happening when people take mega doses of vitamin C to the point where they dump bile. But in the middle area, it may not. We here in nutrition detective land, generally, if you're going to do vitamin C on a long-term basis, I'm putting this out there right now, 250 milligrams or less a day. If you want to do like some lemon juice or something, fine. If you get into the mega dosing, the grams dosing, the 1,000 milligrams plus, you're getting into a suppressive dose. And it's okay if you're trying to shut down detox because you feel bad. That's legit. But don't think that you're speeding up the detox just because all of a sudden you feel amazing. Because you shut down the toxic bile that was leaking into your blood. Okay? So we've established that hypervitaminosis A symptoms, vitamin A toxicity symptoms, and scurvy are the same symptoms, and that vitamin C can relieve vitamin A toxicity symptoms. So just remember, when I say vitamin C can relieve vitamin A toxicity symptoms, that doesn't mean it's making detox run any faster. That's a very important distinction. So if you go out and take what I just said and run away with it and think, Dr. Smith just said take high dose vitamin C. No, that was exactly the opposite. Remember, Linus Pauling took 18 grams of vitamin C a day. He got like prostate cancer in his 60s, and he still died of prostate cancer. It didn't make the problem go away. It may have gone down for a while, but the root cause of the problem was not a vitamin C deficiency, or else he would have never got prostate cancer back again. Okay? So, in this article, I'm going to have to find it. I didn't mark these spots. Let me see. Here we go. 1677. Samuel Pepys copied into his naval precedents a contract he established with victualers. Those were the food providers to the Navy. The document established predetermined rations for each sailor. So you're going to want to listen here. Tell me if you think this is a healthy diet, which included 1 pound of biscuits and a gallon of beer each day. Gallon of beer, 132 ounces. That's 11 beers. A gallon of beer each day. And 4 pounds of beef. I'm sorry, this is predetermined rations. I'm sorry, I forget how. This is for a week. Sorry. I got ahead of myself. This is for a week. Okay. But a gallon of beer each day. So it was 1 pound of biscuits and a gallon of beer each day. And then for the week, it was 4 pounds of beef, 2 pounds of salted pork, 3/8 of a 24-inch cod, 2 pints of peas, 6 ounces of butter, and between 8 and 12 ounces of cheese each week. So between the butter and the cheese, we've got, a pound and a half of butter and cheese a week. So I'm going to tell you that peas are fairly high in vitamin A. We know butter's fairly high in vitamin A. We know cheese is high in vitamin A. We know pork is high in retinoic acid, which doesn't show up on your normal vitamin A measurements. We'll get to the cod and the beef, which are probably low in vitamin A, but they do other things with the fish that make things worse. Gallon of beer each day. It is weak beer, but still, that's their main drink. Like, they don't get water, they get beer. And a pound of biscuits. This will be important later. The most significant alteration came in 1731 when the Navy published a reformed and better written set of regulations and instructions and replaced the fish ration with 3 pints of oatmeal a week. These rations changed little in the 150 years after Pepys established them in the late 17th century. So wait, they changed the rations and they added oats. Those of you who are in the Love Your Liver program know that oats are very high in soluble fiber, particularly beta-glucan, and soluble fiber can help soak up toxic bile and vitamin A and get rid of them through the poop. Okay? So there's a very specific thing that we'll get to. So that they talk about the ship's biscuits here, consisting merely of flour and water. So it's basically like a chunk, like a cookie-looking thing of just flour. Sounds disgusting. So let me find the next part. Oh, bakers use cheaper and roughly ground wheat flour, lower in quality than flour used in common household breads. Okay. 1 pound of biscuits consisted of 3 to 5 biscuits, which one period observer described as plate size. Well, they used smaller plates back then too, but that's a big biscuit. Let me get to the next part. British mariners received notable amounts of meat, especially beef and pork. If you don't know yet, folks, pork is not good food. I don't care if you like it. It's not good for you. I don't care how it's fed. There's a reason. Okay, nobody was feeding pigs bad stuff back in the biblical days when they said, don't eat pork. Okay? So, and then it's heavily salted to make it not rot because, don't eat pork generally. It's a good idea for your health and the health of your children to not eat pork. Okay. Need to find the part where they talk about fish oil. When mariners received pork for their dinner, it usually came with another common British maritime ration, peas. Usually spelt as P-E-A-S-E, the common pairing of dried peas with pork stood as a standard practice in the Navy, who issued peas on pork days each week. Peas are fairly high in vitamin A, right? They're yellow or green. And remember, yellow's vitamin A and green is yellow and blue. So green is going to have vitamin A in it as well. Oh, here it is. Peas came in whole and split forms, with whole appearing to be the most common in both green and yellow colors. While sailors did eat other vegetables, peas stood as the most common type in their diets when supplied from northern European countries. Sorry, this is a long article. If you go and read this article, here we go. Here's the oats thing. So here, when we do this is the best thing in this whole article. So in the Love Your Liver program over at members.nutritiondetective.com, oats are for people who do well with grains. Not everybody does well with grains, but people who do well with grains, oats are one of the highest soluble fiber. They are after barley, which barley is a whole nother level. Barley's like what I call a black belt grain. It's got so much fiber in it, it can really kick your butt. So barley's like, if you try and you don't get along with it, that's kind of normal. If you try barley and you do really well with it, that's great, but that's very few people. So when I say a black belt grain, I don't mean you're going to detox faster. I mean, it's likely to kick your ass. That's what I mean. Okay, so here's the part about oatmeal. Oatmeal, while somewhat disliked by mariners, presented a non-salted food for sailors. Mariners did not always like eating food with a heavy salted content because there was salted cod, there was salted pork, and I bet the beef was salted too. So heavy salted content, and appreciated receiving non-salted provisions whenever possible. Medical professionals such as William Cockburn recognized and encouraged oatmeal for improving the health of sailors, since they believed salty sea diets contributed to developing scurvy. Salty sea diets. Was it the salt, folks? Was it probably the salt? No, it was probably the vitamin A in the diet and the alcohol and the lack of any decent soluble fiber. And then they add oatmeal, and it improves the health of sailors. What a weird coincidence. It's like all of this fits together. We can go look at history and find examples of what we're doing now working in the past. Okay. So, beyond meat, biscuits, and peas, mariners in the Navy also receive rations of dairy products, specifically cheese and butter. And for those who say the whole wheat flour had soluble fiber, no, nothing compared to oats. Okay. Let me see. I think the last thing we needed to go over. Oh, for British sailors in northern European waters, beer was the standard drink at sea. The regulations for rations allowed each sailor 1 gallon of beer per day. In 21st century Western society, consuming a gallon of beer may sound like a large amount of alcohol for a working person to consume every day. One consideration is that the beer issued at sea was a small beer of between 1 and 3% alcohol. Well, that's 3% alcohol is like the light beers today, just about. Isn't it? It's like the really light beers are like 3 to 4% alcohol. Isn't that right? I mean, at the bars I've been seeing, when they have those, the selection of beers up there, usually most of them are in like the 5%, and that's like craft beers. So some of you may know this better than I do, because I don't. Gosh, if I was ever going to drink beer, I'm not drinking Bud Light for sure, but other light beers, I'm not. Ugh, terrible. Anyway, so they were drinking, if you say, even if you're saying 5% beer, so 3% beer at 11 beers a day would be 33. So we would divide that. So that'd be at least, that's like 5.5 beers a day. No, 6.5 beers a day. 6.5 beers a day, every day, day in, day out. And no water. What does beer do to your detox? When you are intoxing, you are not detoxing. So the beer would be shutting down detox. Actually, for those of you who are familiar with the research on vitamin A, It has actually been shown that when you drink alcohol, you kick your blood vitamin A goes up and your liver vitamin A goes down a little bit. Where does vitamin A cause the problems in the system? For those of you who know, it's a special, I mean, of course, the vitamin A in your liver is slowly eating away at and attacking your liver. But it's when the vitamin A goes into your blood that it causes all the symptoms. Now, we just said vitamin A toxicity symptoms were scurvy symptoms. You drink alcohol all day long, and it kicks the vitamin A, some of it, out of your liver. It goes into your blood, and it causes you vitamin A toxicity symptoms, which are scurvy symptoms. Okay. Let's see. I think the last thing we need to go over was hold on. I swear there was okay, here it was. On fishing vessels, the fish they caught for merchants did offer one means for food, though eating their catch meant consuming part of their potential profits. Some fishermen collected the oil out of the fish they caught for cooking. They were cooking their food in fish oil. Talk about PUFAs, and then talk about oxidized PUFAs, which create what? Malondialdehyde. Do we talk about aldehydes here a lot? Malondialdehyde is, so when you hear about PUFAs are bad, which they're not good. Remember, you can't avoid them. If you're going to eat any fat in your life, you cannot avoid all PUFAs. Picking lower PUFA foods is generally a good thing, and not eating high PUFA oils is a very good thing. Okay, because the problem with PUFAs, when they say they oxidize, they turn into malondialdehyde. Malondialdehyde is a really strong aldehyde. You don't want it. So that's why when people start eating less PUFAs, they start feeling better. So, and the more aldehydes you have, remember, vitamin A is an aldehyde. Okay, wait. Alcohol turns into acetaldehyde. Vitamin A you eat from carotenoids, which would have been in those peas, and retinol, which would have been in the fish oil, and then retinoic acid, which doesn't store, but retinoic acid that was in the pork. They're getting plenty of vitamin A, but the carotenoids and the retinol can turn into retinaldehyde. So now you have acetaldehyde from constantly drinking beer, you have retinaldehyde from vitamin A intake, and you have malondialdehyde from eating oxidized fish oil to cook your food. Is this all making sense? And then they give them a little bit of, they give them some oats, and gosh, they get better. Or they give them some limes, which, as we talked about, have been shown to be protective against vitamin A toxicity to an extent. Protects against it doesn't mean you detox any faster. Protects against the symptoms. Ergo. Hope y'all followed that. This all makes sense. We can even look at history and see what they said helped. And the funny thing was when they switched to adding the oatmeal to the rations, they kept it on for like, what'd they say, 150 years? Gosh, it must have worked. So that's what I got on that. Now, the next thing I wanted to go over. Hope you all enjoyed that. Next thing I want to go over was this little paper. I did post this on my Twitter. name of this study sounds much more complicated than it actually is. Transcriptomics of environmental enrichment reveals a role for retinoic acid signaling in addiction. Note how they say retinoic acid signaling. This I'm going to tell you what this means is they're trying to hide something from you. A role for retinoic acid signaling in addiction. It's going to seem pretty obvious to you when I read what they say. So they had rats. What is NASCH? I want to make sure I say that right. Nucleus accumbens shell. Okay. Here's the important sentence. Subsequent knockdown of cytochrome 26B1. And then in parentheses, they put a retinoic acid degradation enzyme. This is a vitamin A. This is a detox enzyme that's part of the vitamin A detox pathway. Okay. So they're saying if they knocked down that pathway in the liver, they broke it. They broke a detox pathway for vitamin A in the liver. Okay. So now follow me here. Subsequent knockdown of cytochrome 26B1, a retinoic acid degradation enzyme in the nucleus accumbens shell of rats, confirmed this role by increasing cocaine self-administration as well as cocaine seeking. So then they say these results provide a comprehensive account of enrichment effects on the transcriptome and identify retinoic acid signaling as a contributing factor for cocaine addiction. So they say retinoic acid signaling. But okay, if you damage the enzyme that breaks down retinoic acid, that means you accumulate retinoic acid. I mean, how hard is this? How hard is it for these scientists to say, oh, if you start accumulating retinoic acid, you'd be more prone to addiction? So cocaine's a speedy drug, right? You know that 80% of Americans consume some sort of caffeine daily? And 2/3 of Americans use coffee as that? Every day. Do you understand what an addiction means, right? Weird that Americans are so addicted to a stimulant. And I'm sitting here showing evidence, as you can see on a video on this channel, that there's a vitamin A toxicity epidemic. The more toxic you are, the slower your detox goes. I don't know. I've been over this paper before, and I've actually shown that when you have more retinoic acid in the system, it slows down ALDH. Now, do you see why Accutane causes so many problems? Because Accutane is retinoic acid. It slows down ALDH. ALDH is key in all of this. And for those of you who just heard me say that, and you go and you start looking on PubMed on things to speed up ALDH, you're going to mess yourself up. You're going to mess yourself up. Because you might find studies on, like, let's say, young mice, where it says drinking alcohol sped up their ALDH. And you might ignore the fact that where they said, oh, in old mice where they drank alcohol, it slowed down ALDH. The more toxic somebody is, like older mice, older people, the slower their detox systems run. And the more the toxins slow them down. So if you want to go out, take the little bit of information I give you here and go and hang yourself with it, you can. How do we know this stuff? Because we already did it and made ourselves feel worse. So you can go and do it. Hopefully you'll realize that I warned you and you'll come back and you'll go, oops. If you're going to be dumb, you better be tough. And this is not a game, as I like to say. So anyway, so it appears, so what we see on the program, and some of you may want to comment in the comments or in the live chat if you're here, is that what we see as we get people less toxic is their cravings for stuff that is not good for them goes down. We see this all the time. People, when they come to this, like, I can't live without my chocolate, Dr. Smith, or I can't live. I love carrot juice. You're telling me I can't have carrot juice? And then as they finally, we have to force ourselves sometimes at the start to stop putting in the toxins so we can actually start detoxing. Once they do that enough, over time, not right away, but over time, their cravings for these things that are not good for them go away. And the other thing they notice is when they consume these toxic things, they realize how bad they feel. Remember, an alcoholic, like a true alcoholic, they feel like crap all the time, right? Because they're drinking all the time. If you say, does drinking alcohol make you feel bad? They'll be like, no, I feel totally fine. They may be in denial, but they may also just not feel bad because they feel like shit all the time. But then when the person stops drinking for a while, and then they drink again, they're going to get hangovers. They're going to feel bad. The problem is when you go back into an addiction, there's one of two things that happens. And you want to know yourself before you do this. Because if you go back into something you were addicted to, one of two things happens. I think we talked about this last week. You're either going to fall deeper into the addiction, or you're going to realize very quickly how bad that is for you and you need to get out of it. Those are usually the two things that happen when people fall back into addictions. They very quickly sense that this is a very bad path and I have to get out of this, or they just, it's like when you hear about people going back to heroin and they overdose their first time, or people going back to alcohol and they're worse than they ever were before. So, yeah, Will said about the addiction stuff. Will said, man, I can't stand the taste of chocolate anymore. Bit into a cookie absent-mindedly a week ago and recoiled. Chocolate is actually pretty nasty when you get away from it. And Hope said, I can't stand the thought of chocolate anymore. Like, I used to keep those dark chocolate, like the Trader Joe's 80% dark chocolate bars around. I used to keep them up in the shelf, and I would have like a quarter of one every day because I thought it was healthy. No, I can't. Halloween comes around, right? And I used to be, like a normal dad. I wouldn't eat a lot of Halloween candy, but I'd have a couple of those little candy bars, right? And over time, now it's like I look at the label of the bar and it's like may contain genetically modified ingredients, and I'm just like, no. And then I taste it and it's just like, why? So I haven't eaten any Halloween candy in like 2 years. I don't touch the stuff. I helped my boy last week realize when he had some ice cream, he's like, Dad, I had to blow my nose like 6 times after that. I'm like, dairy is allergies, like seasonal allergy, snot. Dairy is mucus. I was telling my kids last night, I said, okay, so here's what you want to think about what dairy does in your system. Just imagine melted cheese. Kind of like snot, right? Kind of like mucus. So when you eat dairy, you're basically like eating mucus and your body's going to throw it out. Now I know that's not true, but it's a good visual because it does increase your mucus. I've said this before. One of the first things I realized that food affected how I felt was when I used to drink a glass of milk. I was maybe about 15. I drank a glass of milk, and halfway through the glass of milk, I'd start to notice that I was getting snotty, like halfway through the glass. Teaching my boy that now. My daughter doesn't really like dairy. Lucky for her. So anyway, this is the thing that we see about, and I have somebody. So the thing to remember about addictive things, the things that people get addicted to, and people talk about chocolate addiction. The things that you get addicted to are not ever good for you. I can't live without my morning coffee. I love chocolate. I crave chocolate. These are not good for you. When you are addicted to something, or you have really strong cravings for something over and over, you are addicted, which means it is a poison. This should be simple to understand. Okay? Like, I'm not addicted to meat. I like meat. But could I fast for a couple days if I chose to? Yeah, sure. I'm not gonna sit there and immediately be going like, I need to eat some meat. No, there's not gonna be any, tremors and withdrawal symptoms. I'm not gonna get a headache because I don't eat meat for 2 days. Okay, that's the difference. You can like things. You can really like things. And people on the Love Your Liver program are, they generally tend to like meat because they feel good on it. Doesn't mean only red meat. Some people are doing mostly chicken. Some people are doing other poultry. Some people are doing other red meats. That's fine. Things that you need to survive are very different from things that you crave or that you're addicted to. So things that you crave or are addicted to are almost by definition bad for you. Okay. So let's get into the questions now. I hope Ramon gave us an update. Oh, wait, there was, Pierre, help me out. Can you copy and paste that super chat I missed last week? And I'll get to that one first. I missed a super chat last week, y'all. So, okay. Let's see. So I know it'll take him a second. Okay, cool. I'm going to take the other questions first. So we have a question here from Mina, and she says, can you do a vitamin A detox while taking anti-anxiety medication? Tried getting off of it, couldn't sleep for a second, had stomach pain, so you continued it. Okay. So, yes. I mean, the first step to, so anxiety. You could look up all sorts of stuff on anxiety, things that can help a person with anxiety. There is Kurtu in the program, in the network. I helped her wean off of anti-anxiety medications. I've helped another person wean off of anti-anxiety medications. The key thing, so here's how we do it here, right? You could jump on it cold turkey. You can do that. Some people, cold turkey is the absolute best way to do it. It's the only way they're going to do it because they're just not built to wean. Whether it's impatience, it doesn't matter. So you want to know yourself. Are you a good cold turkey person? Where, like, let's say if you were to go cold turkey off the benzos, which are typical anti-anxiety medications, if you go cold turkey and you're like, I know it's going to suck for a week or two or a month or whatever, but that's just the way I do it, and that's just the way it's going to be. Go ahead. I tend to be of the mind you can look up weaning off of anti-anxiety medications, benzos. You can look up how to wean off of them because they are horrible medications. What do I think they do to the liver to help reduce your anxiety? Well, they're going to do one of two things. They're either going to reduce your bile production and dumping, or they're going to change your bile recipe. Okay, so let's just go do a quick search. Bile PubMed. What did I search for? Serum bile benzodiazepine PubMed. Let me see if we have anything on this. Doesn't look like anything so far. But let's look up benzodiazepine and liver injury. Oh, one of the things that is I have seen, this is not, you are not my client, you are not my patient. So at least definitely while I'm talking on YouTube, if you're on, what I've seen is if a person is on a strong benzo, like Klonopin, there are places on the internet where you can read about how to switch to things like Valium, Valium is diazepam. Okay, so what the general thing on the internet is, and this is what I have suggested to my so I don't tell people how they're going to wean. I tell people to I might show them some links and say, read these, and then watch for the steps. Like when you feel good at a certain level, then you drop it another amount, and then it's weaning, right? You just wean. But first, you switch from the fast metabolizing benzos to the slower metabolizing benzos, the ones that have a longer half-life. So when you have the short benzos, they're like up and down. And so if you don't keep taking them, you get strong crashes. So one of the first things that people do is they switch to a longer half-life benzo so that there's not the big up and down. So they switch to an equivalent dose, which is usually higher, like a Klonopin and diazepam. I think it's like 10, if I recall correctly, I think it was like 10-1. So you'd need 10 times more diazepam in terms of milligrams than it was for 1 milligram of Klonopin, I think. Don't quote me on it. I'm just, it's something like that. And you can find that on the websites. So people wean on their own. What we do, what our approach is people start reducing their vitamin A, minimizing their vitamin A. They start working on, let's say, some of the other minerals. I do think that working on one's folate status, never taking folic acid, and I don't like MTHF. I like folinic acid or calcium folinate. That's what I like. Working on the basic minerals we talk about in the program. Magnesium, potassium is especially important for anxiety. Zinc, selenium, molybdenum, and then getting your normal salting food to taste with a good clean salt. None of these unrefined, weirdly colored salts with all 72 trace minerals in them, so they have all the toxic minerals in them. Don't eat those. So yes, what's going on is, so we did find the liver injury here. Antidepressant-induced liver injury, a review for clinicians. I just post that, right? Yes. Okay. Glenn, if you, I see that super chat. If you had something going on, if you want to repost your question, I'll try to find it. So, okay, let's see. Now, I don't believe what I'm about to read to you. Conclusions on this paper. Although an infrequent event, drug-induced liver injury from antidepressant drugs. Oh, this was antidepressants. I wanted benzos. Well, anyway, same. It's all neuro drugs, right? They say drug-induced liver injury from antidepressant drugs may be irreversible. Now, I'm not saying this to scare you, because we see people fix these problems. You have to remember, in the mainstream medical model, they think vitamin A is good for you. They think you need copper. You need a bunch of copper, and you need a bunch of vitamin A, and you need, and once your brain is broken, you need to take medications. Like, that's their model, right? So if antidepressants cause you a problem or they don't work, they're going to put you on a stronger one, which is going to damage your liver more. So in their model, you only get worse. You're broken, and then you only get worse. That's not our model. So let's see, diazepam. So this is Valium. This is like one of the earliest benzos. But they say here, clinically apparent liver injury from diazepam is extremely rare. They're terrible at finding liver problems. That's why they call fatty liver the silent liver disease. They're terrible at it. But it does cause liver injury. We know that birth control pills cause liver injury. Antidepressants cause liver injury. Benzos cause liver injury. I mean, here's a case report. Cholestatic hepatitis due to oral diazepam. So let me explain what is going on. How do these meds work to change how you feel while at the same time injuring your liver? So remember, what causes symptoms is how much toxic bile leaks into your blood and the recipe or the composition of that bile that leaks into your blood. So you could change either one of those and change how you feel. So think about it. This is why they have all these different medications, which all cause liver injury, that can cause, you can have one medication that helps with erectile function, and you can have one medicine that helps with anxiety, and you can have one medicine that helps with depression, and you can have all these other antipsychotics, chemotherapy. All of them act on the liver and the bile. Okay. So, while I'm here, Glenn, since you asked the question, folinic acid or calcium folinate, 400 micrograms is kind of the standard dose that I use. Kirkman makes a product here. I'll put the link to the one I want. If I was picking a folinic acid, I'm going to be making one here, folks. I have my inquiry into my contract supplement manufacturer about making one, because me, I have to do it right. I have to do it my way. And I'm going to make a 200 microgram dose, which no one does, so that people can dose more custom to their needs. So anyway, the Kirkman 400 microgram folinic acid, aka calcium folinate, one a day is what I use. Can't say specifics for anybody else to use, but that's what I use. So if people are eating a lot of beans, when I mean a lot of beans, I mean like every day and probably at least a cup or more, then you may want to calculate that out, figure out how much folate you're getting. You may not need extra, but not everybody tolerates beans. Oh, here's some interesting stuff I've been finding. I've been going over in the inner circle. It seems that folate is necessary to help zinc work correctly. Folate is necessary to help selenium work correctly. And folate is necessary for molybdenum to work correctly. Vitamin A toxicity causes folate to get depleted. It seems that folate's necessary in ALDH function. Weird. Oh, and what they found in women with intrahepatic cholestasis or toxic leaky bile of pregnancy, they had lower folate levels. Weird. Weird that all these things line up. Never take folic acid, in my opinion. Folic acid, and when you read some people bring up research studies to me, and they're like, well, what about this study? And they talk about folic acid. And one of the things they had in the study that was brought up in the inner circle this week, they said the people with the biggest problems in the study had the most unmetabolized folic acid. Folic acid is a completely synthetic form of folate. You should not eat it. Of course, what do they put in your flours and your breads? They put folic acid because they don't like you. They want you infertile, sick, and dead early. So they give you folic acid. don't. So Glenn, hope that covered your question. That's hope you caught my answer in there. Oh, wait. Okay. So here it is. Pierre got to this. So I'm going to get to this question. This was a super chat last week that I missed. I swear, you guys see me. I scroll up and down the live chat multiple times to try to make sure I don't miss anything. And they even turn these super chats bright colors for me. I don't know how I miss them. It's always the ones right at the end. So maybe they aren't showing on my chat. I don't know. So what's with the, I forget, I don't know who it was, but it was, what's with the idea that a glass of, I think it was a glass of wine every day is heart healthy? Is it versus 2 glasses? Is the term conventional? So the idea, I believe they're talking about the part of the French paradox of consuming wine, or that, maybe some studies that the alcohol industry funded, whether directly or indirectly, to show that they were desperately trying to show that alcohol is somehow good for you. The alcohol industry is like, I forget how many billions of dollars of profits, of value worldwide a year. The billions of dollars, I think the 100 billion something may just be the US. I mean, think of how much money people spend on alcohol every day. And then they actually say when the economy starts going down, like there was a quote from a Bud Light guy. He says, when the economy is good, business is good. And when the economy is bad, business is good. Because when the economy goes bad and people are depressed, what do? They still buy alcohol. Doesn't make anybody any healthier. But imagine these industries, the coffee industry, the chocolate industry, the alcohol industry. You got to know, folks, that when these things are known poisons, there's nobody checking up on the research that scientists do. Like, there's not a science study police coming around and going, are you recording that correctly? Are you sure you're not putting down incorrect numbers in there? Are you sure your calculations are correct? Are you sure you aren't just picking out the data so that it makes alcohol look good? There's nobody doing that. There's absolutely no one doing that. So I don't know, maybe could the alcohol industry could they find certain willing scientists and they say, look, we need you to do a study that says a small amount of alcohol is good for you a day. And then what do people do? You got to remember what people do with wine, because I know this happens. We all know this happens. 1 glass a day is healthy. So what do people do? They crack open the bottle of wine and they have 1 glass of wine. And then all of a sudden they go, maybe I'll have 2 glasses. And then they've got half a bottle left. And they go, I should probably just finish the bottle. Isn't that what they do? So all you got to do is get them to crack open the bottle. And many people are going to all of a sudden finish the bottle. Alcohol consumption generally doesn't just go down over time with people. Generally, alcohol consumption steadily goes up until all of a sudden hopefully they realize, I'm messing up my life. I should get off this poison. And then they may get off, or they think they're going to go back down to like 1 drink a night or 1 drink a couple nights a week. And then all of a sudden it just starts climbing back up again. This is the nature of addictive compounds. You get more. Remember, alcohol drives vitamin A out of the liver into the blood. Vitamin A toxicity increases addiction. We just went over that study. And then you see addictive problems slowly climb over time. The people are doing it to themselves. This is why you need to stop intoxing before you really can start detoxing. Okay, you can take in less toxins and you would start detoxing a little bit more. So it's like, if you think here, if you stop intoxing a little bit, your detoxing is going to go up a little bit. You stop intoxing a lot and your detox is going to go up a lot. Okay, that's how it works. You don't push the brake and the gas at the same time. You can't be like intoxing and then your detox actually slows down. That's how it works. So with the benzos, back to that question on the benzos, what you want to do to make it easier to come off, what a person should do to easily come off would be doing things like, let's say, figuring out what their best potassium intake is for them. And I have articles in the Love Your Liver program about this. Because potassium tends to help with mood stuff. If I were working with somebody, I'd be working on their zinc status, because copper tends to cause lots of anxiety and vitamin A tends to cause lots of anxiety. And we need zinc to protect ourselves against those things. I always work on selenium and molybdenum. I would also work on magnesium, but as Kurtu commented in the live chat, some people are sensitive to magnesium and they can't do it right away. I'm actually thinking that some people, for those of you out there who are working with me or trying to work on your own, and you're real sensitive to zinc or selenium or molybdenum, I am working on, there's research that seems to connect. I believe the research is leading me to the conclusion that people who are really sensitive to zinc or selenium or molybdenum, it may be for some people connected to a folate deficiency, because you need folate in those pathways. I didn't say that that's a rock solid thing yet. But here's some of the other evidence we have along this line of thinking. As people go along in the detox program with me, who are working with me on testing and consultation, or maybe they're doing it on their own, as they get less toxic over time, they start becoming able to tolerate more of the mineral supplements that I like to use. Why is that? Well, if you think about it, if somebody was becoming less toxic over time, as we went over, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Vitamin A depletes folate, copper depletes folate, caffeine depletes folate, alcohol depletes folate, which means aldehydes, vitamin A, and alcohol deplete folate. So we talk about ways to reduce formaldehyde and methanol intake on the program. We talk about not using a lot of spices like vanilla, which has vanillin, which is an aldehyde, and not using cumin, which is cuminaldehyde, and not using cinnamon, which is cinnamaldehyde, and not doing all of these aldehydes, avoiding toxic things like essential oils. So think about it. Over time, if we brought all these things I just mentioned down, that would use up less folate. So their folate status over time, especially if they were eating high folate foods like beans, their folate status in theory could be improving with time, which would then allow them to tolerate the minerals better, if that all connects for you. Okay. Now, some people out there, they need to study. Like, they need to study for everything. They're like, show me the study. And it's funny that they don't ask for a study on how to wipe their butt. Like, these people will ask for a study on everything else. But they're like, no, I just wipe my butt. And you're like, but you need a study to figure out how to do that. Right? These people are just, how are we ever going to move anything forward if you have to wait for a study that nobody's going to fund because there's no money coming out of it, because it doesn't make anybody any money? Right? So let's see. So we got Glenn's question. So we got Mina's question. So yes, you can do it. Yeah. So what I would, just to wrap up that question, Mina, I would look into the weaning strategies. I mean, if you were able to, I would work with me, testing and consultation, or Nathan. He's another option. Nathan's trained by me. So I would work with us on getting the minerals right. And then you have the follow-up, the office hours follow-up for 6 months included in that package. So then you can get guidance on that. Potentially, I mean, definitely with the nutrition. And then if you come to the office hours, then you can get potentially some guidance on what steps to do for weaning. If you can't manage that, then you could join the Love Your Liver program, where there's 1,900 plus people. Maybe we might be to 2,000 now, over 2,000 people in the Love Your Liver network, and some of them have done this before, and they could give you their input on how to proceed, and like the time scales that it took them, and what they learned along the way, what they saw. So and if you work with me or Nathan, you still get access to the Love Your Liver network, so you can have all of us working on it together. So that's what I got on that one. Ryan says, been on a no vitamin A diet. Let me correct you. There is no such thing as a no vitamin A diet. It's a low vitamin A diet. So been on a no vitamin A diet for almost 2 months. Feel great. Lost over 20 pounds and I believe you mean testosterone. Testosterone feels higher, but I have a bit more acne. Sign of detox. Appreciate it. Okay. So this is a very important concept. Think of detox in the body as like we are cleaning, like spring cleaning. We are cleaning the house. Let's say, you imagine let's say you bought an old house that nobody lived in for years. And you go in there and, we're talking about like the liver and the toxicity. It's been neglected for years. It's been accumulating dust and cobwebs and stuff like that. And we're going to go in and clean that house. Right? We're going to take out things from the house, so we can clean around them because everything's dirty. So we're going to take things out. The key thing here is that you're going to need, compared to when that house is clean, you need very little in terms of cleaning materials, right? Because you're just maintaining it. You just need a little bit of cleaning materials, every 2 weeks or month or whatever you do. But when you have to clean that house, when it's been sitting there for years, accumulating dust and cobwebs and, animal feces and whatever in the house, right? Whatever got into that house and caused a mess, spiders, it's going to take a ton of cleaning materials. This is something that people either don't want to admit to themselves or they're ignorant of. And this is even with high-level people in the community, is that the increased cleaning materials needs would be things like potentially zinc, selenium, molybdenum, magnesium, potassium, folate. Because when you are trying to clean up, you need more of these things. I hope this makes sense. And here's the next thing. People will go, but I'm just going to get it all from food. And then you ask them, so is food day as good as it used to be? Does it have the nutrients in it that it used to? And they go, no, it doesn't have the nutrients in it that it used to at all. And so you're going, okay, so wait, let me just be clear here. We know that you're more toxic. You're toxic. You need a lot of stuff out of you. And we know that the process of detox is going to use up more nutrients than normal maintenance. You're going to need extra nutrients. And then we just established, and you just admitted, that there's not enough nutrients or not as much nutrients in the food as there used to be. It's not going to work. You need more nutrients, and we know that the food has less nutrients. Even Grant Genereux admitted, I think in one of his books, that when he took a 50 milligram zinc pill, he would take one every 2 weeks. He felt better for several days after he took that zinc picolinate pill. What does that imply to me? That he was zinc deficient. He was eating a pound of meat a day, or even 2 pounds, I think, at one point. That's a lot. That should be a lot of zinc. That should be enough, shouldn't it? Apparently it's not, because he felt better taking some zinc. Now, first thing I think when I see someone mention acne or skin issues is I think zinc deficiency. So let's say you started on a low vitamin A diet for 2 months and things are you're feeling great, lost over 20 pounds, your testosterone feels higher, but you're starting to get a sign of acne. I would look at a couple of things. You may be pushing the soluble fiber too hard. And then you're dumping more bile and leaking more bile into your blood, and it's coming out through your skin. It could be a zinc deficiency that is slowly being aggravated by the detox process itself, because you need more zinc through the detox process, and potentially by your food choices. Like I think the last time I looked, like chicken had, I'm not saying you're doing this, Ryan, and I'm not doing like dietary consult here, but let's just say somebody was eating a lot of chicken instead of like poultry instead of red meat. I think the time I looked it up, from what I found, basically red meat had close to 10 times as much zinc in it than chicken did. So let's say somebody's relying on a more chicken diet than more red meat diet. 10 times less zinc. That could end badly. So that would be the first thing that comes to mind. I mean, you can look up zinc and acne, and it's fairly clear in the research that a zinc deficiency is associated with acne. But let me go now, since we're on the folate trip, I'm on it at least. Here we go. Not hard to find. Oh, this is after. Well, so this relates to vitamin A toxicity. Remember, whenever you see a symptom of Accutane or isotretinoin, you know that it's another symptom of vitamin A toxicity. So this is not exactly what I was looking for, but let me plug that in there. Decreased vitamin B12 and folic acid concentrations in acne patients after isotretinoin therapy. A controlled study. So, and they say here at the end, conclusion, vitamin B12/folic acid treatment should be given under medical surveillance before and during Accutane isotretinoin therapy. Supplementation of these vitamins should be recommended in cases of their deficiency so as to decrease the risks of neuropsychiatric and occlusive vascular diseases. So that vitamin A toxicity depletes folate, right? I do think that the detox can deplete all sorts of things. Folate being of the B vitamins in this work, in my opinion, the most important one, because it is the most involved in ALDH, which is the most involved in bile production. ALDH and bile production are kind of like, so let me see if I can find anything else. Never folic acid. Never. And if you go and you look up research where they say high folate was causing diseases, just look in there and they'll talk about folic acid. They say folate in the title of the study, and then they talk about folic acid in the article. It's almost like they're trying to confuse people. Let me see if I found something. Nope. There's not much on folate and acne specifically. And we've had really good results with the two big things I would say. Like I said, I'm not here doing a dietary consult. The two big things I would be suspecting would be maybe too much soluble fiber, pushing things too hard, and potentially a slowly aggravating zinc deficiency. So that would be my suspicion. Somebody was asking me on a comment on a YouTube video how much zinc I was taking. Okay, I don't get into what I'm doing specifically because that's not the point of what we do here. The point of what we do here is to help each person, the people in the Love Your Liver program and the people who especially who work with me who can get feedback. We are working on finding out, helping the person, teaching a man to fish. We are trying to teach somebody. I mean, yes, we do the testing because it's really hard to see that information. Somebody can't be like, I feel like my zinc level is 85. You can't do that. So we do look at the tests to get a neutral, like just data. And then with the office hours, we work with them, especially we have the initial consult where I kind of tell them, here's your limit of zinc. Like, here's the max amount of zinc I want that you could go up to if everything felt okay. And they start increasing their zinc slowly, systematically, watching for a big list of symptoms that I give them to see if they get any negative symptoms like copper dumping out of the liver too fast on their way up in zinc. And if they get up to the full dose and they have no negative symptoms, then we keep them there. But if they get negative symptoms, then they find a lower dose. So my zinc dosing in the 4 years that I've been doing this would be like asking a black belt in martial arts what he does to train every day versus a white belt. They're totally different things. There was times where I think I was taking 100 milligrams of zinc a day. And I was testing. And it helped me get to the point I am now. Now, I'm typically I take 1 Keystone Minerals a day. And if you don't know what Keystone Minerals is, let me put a link in there. Keystone Minerals is kind of the foundational multi-mineral I created. It's got 30 milligrams of zinc in it. It's got 150 micrograms of selenium in it. It's got 150 micrograms of molybdenum in it. And then, because I insisted on no bad fillers or additives or drying agents or magnesium stearate or any of that stuff. Well, instead of magnesium stearate, what I put in was I said, I want you to fill, if you need to fill the rest of the capsules, I talked to my supplement guys. I said, I want the zinc, I want the selenium, I want the molybdenum. I don't want any extra garbage fillers. No cellulose, which is just purified sawdust. I don't want any of that. They said, we're going to need something because people don't like, I want you to think about this, folks. They could make supplement pills with no fillers and no additives, and there would be an air pocket in them. But then you know what American consumers do, and people who just can't seem to understand things? They go, my pills are half empty. Why? Why aren't my pills full? So they fill it up with crap because everybody wants a full capsule. I'd rather have a capsule that was only a quarter full of the stuff I wanted and none of the stuff that I didn't. But because people want full pills, we put in some magnesium malate. Tiny bit, just enough to make the capsules full. So those who insist on full capsules get what they want. Okay? So just remember, when you're asking for if you ever insist on, why was this capsule not totally full? You're asking them to fill it with crap, not the active ingredients. If you want additive free, they're only make the capsules so many different sizes. So you're gonna have to pick a size that fits what you want to put in it, but there might be extra room. So Keystone Minerals, 30. So for most people, in my experience, 30 milligrams of zinc is, so you have to think of best practices. 30 milligrams of zinc, in my experience, is 2 things. 1, it's not enough to drive people into toxicity. Here's a key thing in medicine that most doctors don't care about, which is first, do no harm. So when you hear about me talking about a zinc dose, and there's other people on the internet going, you need to take 50 milligrams a day or 60 milligrams a day. Those doses could easily be toxic for small women, petite women, small men, very easily. Zinc toxicity is a legit thing. So don't do it. But the only way you're going to know is testing. So what do? I give my foundational dose of zinc is a bit less than what I think could potentially cause toxicity in some people. Now, is 30 milligrams enough for everybody? No. I was just talking to a gentleman last week where he's a larger gentleman, and we're currently using about 90, or I think we went down to 60. So he was using 90 for the last 6 months. And I told him we had a good chat, and we were like, maybe 60 to 90 this next 6 months. And I wanted him to get back to me and give me feedback on how he was feeling on the different doses. That's the magic of this program. I can say, go try this, come back and report. Let me know how you're doing. Whereas if you go to your normal doctor, you got to go and then pay another doctor's visit. Or you can leave a message with them and hope they reply within a month or two. Or say, you need to pay the front office before I'll call you back or before I'll write you an email. Email follow-ups are terrible. I don't like them. I don't want to do them ever again. Email is terrible for follow-ups. You can't get enough information fast enough. So anyway, 30 milligrams a day is what I'm currently on most days, but because I'm quite in touch with my system, some days I'll add a little more. But that's after years of supplementing zinc, sometimes at quite high doses. I will warn you out there, in the research that I've looked at, the case studies that I've looked at, the definite starting point of where you see the case studies of zinc toxicity show up is 100 milligrams or more a day. I'm not saying it's automatically going to happen. I know people who have gone over that and done fine. But if you're out there not testing, which means you're guessing and you're screwing around, there's a chiropractor I know on Twitter who got a bit too aggressive with his zinc supplementation because he thought he knew, and he got some zinc toxicity. And he messaged me and he was like, people, it's funny when people message me, they go, if you're going to be dumb, you better be tough. And I go, that's the saying. It's there for a reason. You can test it out and you'll find that it's true. Over 100 milligrams of zinc for any long-term amount of time, you're probably going to cause yourself a problem. But if we're testing every 6 months and we are checking up on people with office hours and going, how are you feeling? How's everything going? Anything new popping up? Then if they start saying, oh yeah, I've been having, let's say they were saying, oh, I've been having some more heartburn. I'd be like, ooh, that's, everybody knows you take zinc on an empty stomach. You might get nausea. You might even throw it up. Gosh. So if we have somebody on a lot of zinc and over time they start going, gosh, I've been getting some heartburn symptoms. Then we start going, oh, probably time to ratchet back the zinc. It's very simple, but you got to know what to watch for. So that's the amount of zinc I'm taking. The big mistake is to think that looking at somebody who's a black belt when you're a white belt and doing what the black belt does doesn't make you a black belt. It makes you a white belt doing stuff that you can't handle. Okay? They had to spend years to get the black belt. That's like with barley. People are like, barley's got more soluble fiber than oats, and I'm going to do barley. And then they do it, and they're like, what the heck is then that train that just hit me? And I go, I told you about barley. If you're going to be dumb, you better be tough. I told you. You guys know who are in the Love Your Liver program, I give so many warnings. So many warnings. Watch for this. Watch for this. If you feel great, go ahead. If you don't feel good, stop. Do less, or don't do it at all now. Maybe you could do it later. Kind of like with the white belt, black belt analogy. Somebody's trying to do a double flipping twist spin kick as a white belt, and they're just falling on their neck and breaking it. Whereas you could say, try this easy one first. And if you can't handle that, definitely don't do the advanced one. Don't do that. So that was the zinc comment. Big comment. Glenn, nice to have you back. Oh, Ryan says I do 1 pound of beef and 1 pill at night of your zinc supplement. Okay, so cool, Ryan. That's a very solid dose. So that's where I would start to say, okay, so you are getting some zinc. We may be getting into, so it could be, so sometimes if you push zinc too hard and you dump too much vitamin A and copper out of the liver, that could aggravate it. So that this is where I'd be looking at potentially too much soluble fiber, pushing things too hard, or it could even be all the time I'm sitting there telling people, if things are getting worse as you take too much zinc, then back off the zinc. So Christopher, I just saw this comment from Christopher 3D. I'm gonna explain. Christopher said, people in Grant's forum are saying too much zinc is causing sulfur imbalance problems for some people. Well, I'm going to say something here that is, people on Grant's forum can be any. There are probably some very smart people there, but also anybody can come in on Grant's forum and just talk out of their rear end. Okay, I'm going to explain. So people on, even Grant went and said that eating onions caused him eye problems. Onions are very high in sulfur. Sulfur, as I've been over with the research, slows ALDH. This is in the literature. Sulfur slows ALDH. Sulfur slows ALDH, and they don't necessarily restrict it. Zinc speeds up ADH, alcohol dehydrogenase. So if you're processing you're making aldehydes, you're processing alcohols into aldehydes. So zinc speeds up ADH. So you turn alcohols into aldehydes faster, but then you have a slowed down ALDH. Because you want to know what people on Grant's forum probably don't talk about much. They probably don't talk about selenium. They probably don't talk about molybdenum, 2 minerals that you need to run ALDH. And they don't restrict the things that I tell people to stop slowing, that slow down ALDH. What do you need to run sulfite oxidase? Molybdenum. People say, oh, there's molybdenum in beans. BS. There used to be. There isn't anymore. I see it on hair tests all the time. There's hardly any molybdenum in beans anymore. So you'll read on the internet, they'll be like, beans are the best source of molybdenum. And it's like, yes, the best of everything is crap. So if you start understanding that sulfur problems first are rooted in molybdenum deficiency, and you need molybdenum to run ALDH, and sulfur slows ALDH, and too much zinc speeds up ADH. Here's the simple thing for that. People in Grant's forum are saying too much zinc is causing sulfur imbalance problems for some people. I'm going to simplify that. Somebody said that too much zinc for them made them feel bad. Here's the simple philosophical answer for whatever they're doing. Doc, it hurts when I do this. Then don't do that. Right? It seems so simple. Now, there's lots of people on that forum who disagree with my approaches, and they can do that. That's fine. Some of them are eating lots of eggs and lots of fish full of mercury and lots of high polyphenol fruits and vegetables. And Oh, polyphenols slow down ALDH. So, yeah, all those blueberries and grapes and berries and all that slows down ALDH. It's in the literature. So, in the Love Your Liver network, people are much more in line, and they don't just make up things that they think they read on. See, here's the problem. People get into the vitamin A, maybe they start realizing that vitamin A isn't a vitamin, but their open-mindedness ends there, and they go, well, all the other vitamin science definitely has to be right. And then I'm sitting there going, wait, if we just put a crack in the whole thing, maybe the whole thing is garbage. Maybe the whole thing is just absolute garbage vitamin science created by the Rockefellers and Merck. Because it is. So they don't believe the vitamin A research, but all of a sudden they believe all the other research. And I'm like, wow. Did you miss the lesson here? Yeah. Oh, here's a funny thing here. Let me find the choline thing. So, yeah, there's kind of a weird little movement in the vitamin A detox larger community thinking that choline deficiency is rampant and it's the big problem. Here, let me just read the title of this paper. This may help clear some things up. So I've been talking a lot about folate, right? And you need folate to run ALDH and all this stuff. And some people are out there saying that you need high vitamin A egg yolks for choline. Do you know that your body makes choline? Does your body make folate? Absolutely not. But here, let me read the title of this paper. Genetic variation of folate-mediated. Folate-mediated. One carbon transfer pathway predicts susceptibility to choline deficiency in humans. And it says here, choline is a required nutrient, and some humans deplete quickly when fed a low choline diet, whereas others do not. Endogenous choline system, and this is a very important sentence, endogenous, from within the body. We can make choline. Endogenous choline synthesis can spare some of the dietary requirement and requires one carbon groups derived from folate metabolism. Do you have choline deficiency or do you just have a folate deficiency? We are so far ahead of all of this. So what if we could just fix this whole choline problem with some folate? Folate's necessary for ALDH. Folate is depleted by vitamin A and copper and caffeine. And geez, let me just go look. I have a suspicion. Let's just see. What if we were to find out that polyphenols depleted folate? Wouldn't that be a crazy thing? Nothing obvious coming up. But I want you to understand how important that we don't make folate in our body. We do have the ability to make choline. So when we have an ability to make something, we shouldn't mess with it. That's why I don't have people take methylated B vitamins. You're going and you're messing with methylation. Methylation is a process. You don't just go in and throw in a bunch. You could put an excess of oil in your car. It doesn't make it run better. In fact, it'll cause problems. So if we can make choline, and it just so happens Some people on a low choline diet get problems and some don't. But I've presented research in that egg thread on Twitter of how excess choline causes all sorts of disease. Gosh, where would we get excess choline from? Oh, it's been shown that the highest source of food choline is eggs, and your blood choline can be predicted from your egg consumption. And you require folate to make choline. So what if some people were folate deficient and they start taking some choline or eating some egg yolks and they feel better? Are they fixing the root cause of their problem? Do they still have a folate deficiency most likely? Would fixing their folate deficiency potentially fix their choline deficiency? Quite possibly. This is real root cause stuff here, folks. And it's well documented on this channel that vitamin A severely depletes folate. So, yeah. There have been along this with the way people who learned my stuff and then thought they figured out something new and that they were smarter than me, and then they break off and they do their own thing. It doesn't usually end well. But that's not my problem. So let me just make sure I didn't miss any chats or any super chats. Thank you. Oh, I forgot to say thank you, everybody, for the super chats. Thank you very much. I appreciate them very much. Sorry, I forgot to say each one. Let me just double check. See, I run through these several times, and then I'll go back up to the top. I got 15 minutes left. I have a hard stop at 1 o'clock my time. Okay, Growing Easy says, I'm growing white corn because it's lower vitamin A. True, yes. But I have read/heard in several places that all corn has toxic fungus on it and we should not eat corn at all. Do you have any info on this? My simple answer is no, I have not looked that up. It kind of makes sense because these plants with, like, I don't know, kind of like where there's a space in the plant between the, if you want to call it the shell or the husk, where there's like airspace in there, like peanuts, there's like the nut in the middle. Peanuts grow all sorts of aspergillus mold on the inside of them. If you ever open up a peanut and you look at the inside of it and you see that silky white, that's mold. In terms of, I don't know if corn has fungus on it or not. You might want to next time give me some links, something to look at. But I don't have any info on it, so that's the easy answer to that question. I don't know. I eat corn, white corn, maybe once every couple of weeks. It's not a big part of my diet. Free Michigan says, I can't digest meat right now. I'm eating oats, quinoa, and millet regularly. I soak them overnight. Do I need to worry about phytic acid and other anti-nutrients as much as you hear about online? First, one of the things about digesting meat. So first, I do believe this, that there are some people out there who don't do well on meat for whatever reason. I don't know the reasons. They're just people who say, I feel awful whenever I eat meat. And then I go, well, it's simple philosophy. Doc, it hurts when I do this. Well, don't do that. Okay? I've had some people tell me they don't feel good on red meat. So I'm like, eat poultry. Simple. One of the things about eating meat that will help your digestion of it is to, if you are going to eat meat, eat it by itself. Do not combine it with a bunch of other things. Just eat the meat by itself. Don't eat grains with it. Don't eat beans with it. Don't eat fruit with it. Don't eat vegetables with it. Eat the meat by itself. And you may only eat a small bit. And then, don't eat anything else for at least an hour or two after it. And then see how you feel on that meat. Because it may be completely different than when you eat it with other foods. So there's that. Do you need to worry about phytic acid and other anti-nutrients as much as you hear about online? If you're soaking them, you're going to be a lot better off. Now, if you're going to soak the grains anyway, you might as well throw maybe a half teaspoon or a teaspoon of charcoal in there, because whatever comes out of the grains, you stir. So here's the soaking with charcoal thing. I do think this is the best thing to do for rice, especially because charcoal soaks up arsenic. They use it to treat wastewater, to get arsenic out of wastewater. You can look up the studies. I think I've probably posted them here before. So if you're going to soak, well, if you wanted to use this on anything, soaking beans, soaking grains, you put it in the water. I'm going to put mine in the fridge. But anyway, so you got the beans in the water. You put in some charcoal, half teaspoon, whatever. Stir it up so it's well mixed. Let it sit in the fridge overnight. When you take it out in the morning, stir it up again to get everything, because the charcoal has to kind of touch the arsenic to grab onto it. So you stir it up again, and then you would rinse it. The charcoal will come off. So you just rinse it in the sink. You get a strainer or whatever, and you rinse it. Rinse off all the charcoal, and then you cook it like normal. When I have seen people who do this regularly with rice, and they do it well, their arsenic levels look like somebody who doesn't eat rice. The charcoal really works on the arsenic in rice. So that would probably, I don't even know. Let me just see. Let me see. Let's do activated carbon phytate. PubMed. Let's see if activated carbon grabs onto phytate. Wouldn't that be a heck of a thing for charcoal to grab onto phytate? So here we have a paper. I don't know if this says it. Activated carbon, which is charcoal, and ion exchange treatments for removing phenolics, like polyphenols, and phytate from peanut protein products. Okay, let's see. Let's see. The ion, they say the ion exchange treatment removed greater than or equal to 85% of the phytate. Well, we're not talking about that. And the ion exchange and activated carbon treatments removed 92% and 82% respectively of the total phenolic acids from peanut protein isolate. It doesn't say how much phytate was removed. And I don't have the whole paper here. Anyway, I don't know if I put this link in there. Let me just go see if... Let me go to Sci-Hub. If you don't know about Sci-Hub, that's where you can try to find whole papers. sci-hub-st is the one I've been using. Let me put this in here. Here we have it. I'll even put the link to the Sci-Hub paper here. Let's see. That's phenolics. They're not really, I don't see them mention phytate with... One more second. I'm going to guess that the charcoal may not remove. I'm not seeing anything. They're not stating anything about the activated carbon removing any of the phytate. So, nothing exciting. But charcoal sure did grab onto those phenols. Maybe they aren't so good for you if the charcoal's really grabbing them up. 85% of them. Maybe those brightly colored fruits and vegetables, which are that way to mark that they're toxic and poisonous, maybe that's why the charcoal grabs onto the phenols so much. So, but yeah, it will grab onto, I mean, we can assume that the charcoal is going to grab onto the carotenoids that might be in those grains. It's going to grab onto the phenols, the polyphenols. And yeah, some people, I think Will was saying apple cider vinegar helps with phytates. I do believe that if you put a little bit of that in your soaking water, it might also do that. But if you do the charcoal and the apple cider vinegar, I don't know if they would work against each other because acetic acid may just be grabbed onto by the charcoal. Wait a second. Why do I feel like live chat? Okay, there we go. Somehow it changed from. What is going on? Oh man, my chat just got all weird in the order of it. Or there's just so many chats I can't scroll all the way back up anymore. Well, that's awesome to have so many chats. We got 5 minutes left, and I don't know the order of the chats anymore, so I'm just going to go down and pick something that I want to answer. Let's see. Okay. Just reading some of the chats. Sorry. Okay, Christopher asks, what are my thoughts? I kind of went over methylfolate versus folate. I don't like methylated B vitamins. Now, here's the thing. If we're going to talk about methylation, very key thing here. Methylation is run best by your body. Okay. Now, people may have methylation defects. A lot of the epigenetics peoples like to complain about this and whinge. Remember, genetics loads the gun, environment pulls the trigger. And then, like people who have the MTHFR, they'll say, but I need my methylfolate and my methylcobalamin because I can't detox as well. What have I told you before about toxicity? You can't start detoxing really well until you stop intoxing. And what are health nuts eating a ton of? Vitamin A. Let's just go and look up. So let me just show you vitamin. Let's go retinoic methylation PubMed. So let's just see, does retinoic acid affect epigenetics? Could it turn on and off things and make you methylate faster or methylate slower? Well, I don't know. Let's just read some of these study titles. Epigenetic modification of retinoic acid treated human embryonic stem cells. Weird. Retinoic acid, vitamin A can cause birth defects. Epigenetic modification of retinoic acid treated human embryonic stem cells. Here's another paper. HTERT DNA methylation analysis identifies a biomarker for retinoic acid induced HTERT repression in breast cancer cell lines. Here's a promoter methylation and silencing of the retinoic acid receptor beta gene in lung carcinomas. Gosh, does vitamin A affect epigenetics and methylation? Yes. Let me just see this one. MicroRNA and DNA methylation alterations mediating retinoic acid-induced neuroblastoma cell differentiation. So they're going to say that the RNA and the DNA were affecting the retinoic acid, when I'm sure it's quite the opposite. I mean, right? It's kind of like your skeleton doesn't move until the muscles move it. It's like the DNA doesn't change until some toxin that can dissolve cells starts coming in there and messing with it, right? So anyway, methylation problems are rooted in toxicity. Then you have the MTHFR people going, but I don't detox as well. And I go, because you're toxic. And you're probably trying to be healthy and you're eating tons more toxins, like all of us did before we knew about vitamin A toxicity. I used to eat spinach salads. I used to put frozen spinach in everything I could. There was a time where I would make 12 egg omelets. I ate liver. I took astaxanthin. I took cod liver oil. I did dairy, a bunch of dairy. It's bad. My history of vitamin A toxicity, it comes from all angles. But the methylation problem is rooted in toxicity. Why are people depleting their folate potentially? Because they've got too many aldehydes in their system. I've had people recently where some of them took methylfolate. First day they felt great. Within a week, they started feeling bad. Because you start messing with things the body does, like, I don't know, making choline. You start going and messing with it, you're going to cause problems. Start throwing in methyl groups. What if you get too much of them? You're going to cause problems. There's over-methylation and there's under-methylation. The crowd on the internet loves to always talk about under-methylators. And they're like, you need more methyl groups. There's over-methylators too. And these tend to be the people who are the most sensitive to supplements. But nobody likes to talk about them because that's like a 5% or less group of the people. They want to sell all their supplements. They want to seek health and throw tons of methyl groups at people. We never use folic acid because it's synthetic. Methylated B vitamins, throw a bunch of methyl groups in there and they can screw things up. So we use, as I always do, we use something in the middle so that the body can change it. We use folinic acid, which is sold as calcium folinate. And no, I'm not concerned about the micrograms of calcium in a day's dose of calcium folinate. So The key thing for methylation is to work on reducing the toxins in. And then, you know, you can get some B12. I like adenosylcobalamin and hydroxycobalamin. I don't use methylcobalamin. Oh, shoot. It's 12 o'clock. Well, I have to go. Okay. So thank you all for coming. And hope you all had a good time. There was some people going at it in the comments today on topics I'm not going to refer to. So anyway, thank you all for coming. It was a great time. Have a great weekend. Don't forget, all the links are down below. I will see you next week, and bye now.